Hey everyone, it's Warren from DataTale. Welcome to my YouTube channel. This series we're going to be looking at managing data projects. So from my experience running very small, agile data projects within Power BI, we're going to have a look at 6 common mistakes when running your data project. And then in later videos, we're going to jump into some project methodology based off CRISP DM, and we're going to look at the ways that you can capture these mistakes, identify them early, and give you the best chance of running your best Power BI project, or any tool for that matter. So if you are interested in learning more about data project management using Power BI, please do make sure you subscribe to these videos. This one was recorded at a conference that I did for smart cities here in Australia. So I hope you enjoy it, and I hope to see you on more videos.
So my presentation is titled Why My Grassroots Data Project is Now a Grass Fire. And now this is something that I've experienced before. Hopefully you haven't, but I'm sure you have. So essentially what I'm going to do is look at my experience in running data analytics projects and help you to identify some issues and how you can run your data analytics projects better. So throughout this presentation, I will be referring to a tool called Power BI. Now, if you don't use Power BI, please don't switch off. These lessons are generic and they can be used across, all data projects that you do run. So just a little bit about my background. Laura did mention a lot of it, so I'm not going to go into it. But DataTale is a small startup, and we work with government clients in end-to-end Power BI development. So Power BI training, implementation, best practice, and report development. And so I have worked within local and state government for the last 15 years before I went out on my own and started up this business. And essentially this presentation is, taking some of that experience that I've learned and rolling it up into some ways that you can identify when your project is running off track. So previously, I worked at the City of Casey, which is based in Victoria, and had the privilege of setting up a data analytics function from scratch, which was a really exciting opportunity because there's so many learnings when you get to start something up brand new. And, I was given a task of fail fast, so trying a lot of things, learning a lot of things, and developing a methodology to help us to run data analytics better. So the goal of this presentation essentially is to share with you some of those findings and some of my reflections on the many failings that I've had, and hopefully ensure that you can avoid those failings and give you the best chance of success when you are working on your own data projects. But data is the new oil. So you've probably heard this saying, and we hear it quite a lot. And you might think everyone loves data. Everyone wants to run a data project. How could you ever have a problem with data? And if you can have a look at that stat there that says 90% of corporate strategies will explicitly mention information as a critical enterprise asset and analytics as an essential competency. And that's from Gartner, and we can definitely see that all businesses are looking to incorporate data in making data-driven decisions within the business. But have a look at this second stat that I've also found from the same Gartner paper. Only 20% of analytic insights will deliver business outcomes. So what that's really saying is 80% of analytic projects will fail. Now, can you try selling that to your director or CEO? I want to invest in analytics and 80% of everything I do is going to fail. That will not go down well. So hopefully you stick around for this presentation, and I'm going to show you some ways that you can bump that 20% up. Probably not 100%, but let's bump it up a bit more than 20%. So just an overview of the presentation. So we're going to be looking at 6 common reasons for data project failures. I'm going to help you identify these failures and how to avoid them. And at the end of the presentation, I'm going to show you a methodology that can help you safeguard against these failures. So 6 common reasons for data project failures. The 6 that we're going to look at is, the first one is not solving a problem. The second one is not involving the business. Third one is lack of executive buy-in. The fourth one is poor data integrity. Fifth one is inability to pivot. And the last one will be no training. So the first one we're going to look at is not solving a problem. So you have a tool like Power BI, you have a whole heap of data, possibly, as in my previous role, you work within local government and you have a huge array of data, which is why I love local government. So excellent, let's go ahead, let's build some reports, let's analyze that data. Do not start your project like this. Please don't do that, it's a really bad idea. It is easy to get carried away when you have a new shiny tool or a program and that you want to start building things just because it's exciting and it's easy to do. The problem that you want to look at solving is, is there something to do with profitability that I can solve? Is there some type of quality issues in my data? Is there some type of efficiencies that I can improve? Am I losing customers? Whatever this type of question is, you want to make sure that you can define a problem statement first. So don't jump into building reports, don't jump into doing your analytics. Think about the business and what type of problems are the business having. Now, the reason we want to do this is the second point here is we want to avoid reporting. We don't want to build reports or Power BI, Tableau, whatever the tool it is. You don't want to build reports that just look like massive Excel tables. We already have Excel. Excel's a great tool, but when we're moving into business intelligence, we don't want to just replicate what we already have in Excel. In Power BI, the BI actually stands for business intelligence. And business intelligence is all about making business decisions. Not really reporting. Now, I'm not saying reporting doesn't have its place. I know reporting does have its place. Statutory reporting obviously is very important, but that's not really the goal of business intelligence. It really is, what is that problem, defining that problem, and answering that question for the business. Now, what we really also want to do is develop measures of success, which is the third point there. Now, our project, again, has an overall problem statement. What are we trying to do? Now we need to develop KPIs or metrics of success. So really, these things should line up with the business goals. These are things that we should be able to measure and things that we should be able to change. And on top of that, there should be accountability. If a certain KPI isn't able to be met, what are we going to do? Who has accountability for making a decision on this? So if I can go back to some examples in previous roles of having a problem statement or using that data to actually solve problems. There was maternal child health data. We use maternal child health data to predict where to put a kindergarten. So that's a clear problem that we want to solve. Possibly in terms of staffing, if I reduced my casual staff by X and increased my permanent staff by Y, how much will I save this financial year? Which department has, underspent on their budget, and how are they going at spending their budget throughout the financial year? Are they, only spend it in the last 2 months, or have they spent it evenly across the whole year? Or maybe we can look at, lots of talk about open data. We could look at leveraging open data. So can we use CrashStats data, which is a Victorian-based government data set, to help us understand where we can invest in infrastructure to improve intersections or roads? And the last point I want to mention about not solving a problem is, even though we have a problem statement and we're aiming to solve a problem, using a tool like Power BI or a business intelligence tool can also help secondary issues. So you can help automating and making some of this data gathering automated. You can improve the quality of your data because you're increasing the transparency of your data. You're letting people at the business actually see the data, what's going on. So that's going to improve your quality. You can integrate different data sets. In that example, we had maternal child health and kindergartens, 2 different data sets, bringing them together. And that's going to also improve your transparency. So that is the first one. So we're looking at not solving a data problem. Second reason or common fault is not involving the business. So in the previous slide, I mentioned that we should be aiming to solve a problem, but here I'm talking about involving the business to actually define that problem. So the approach of if we build it, they will come is a terrible approach. It doesn't work. I have tried it before, so please don't do that. It won't work. They'll actually fight you. The business will fight you to not use your product if you don't involve them from the start. A data project should never be about data. It should always be about the business. So that's really important. A data project should never be about the data. It should always be about the business. So it's not good enough to solve a good problem or to have a good idea and to solve that problem idea. What are the business problems? What are your business you work in, the clients that you work for, what are their problems? What are their pain points? What are their roadblocks? Not only are we then serving the business by helping them answer these questions, this is also going to result in a huge buy-in from the business because they've been involved from the start. They've identified those problems and you are actually solving their problems, not making up problems that they didn't even know they had. Now, these need to have defined requirements. This is another point of involving the business. So the business really needs to know what they're getting out of this data project. So there's no surprises at the end of the project. So you might think of it of, what's that estimated return of investment? So is it financial? Is it time savings, automation, greater insights? What's the return of investment the business is getting from the project that you're running? And this really helps the business to justify, the time they're going to spend on the project. So if they're going to allocate a key resource to spend some time with you when you're running this data project, this is something that you really do need, which brings me on to the third point here, which is having a key stakeholder. So a key stakeholder is really needed in the development of a data project. I'd say that it's critical because you need a person who understands the context of the business, its processes, the data or the nuances of the data. If I can think of a couple of examples. So I was once working on a project where something looked completely wrong. I'd taken the data, I'd visualized it, and something was just off. So I went to the key stakeholder who was in the business and I asked them about this field. I said, this doesn't look right. And they said to me, yeah, look, in 15th of February, 2017, this field was actually changed. So it used to be an invalid flag, a yes and no, and now we use it to write comments because we didn't have enough space in the database. We didn't have any extra fields in, and we just made that change. Now that type of context and information is just critical to understand that information. Because if we don't do this, we're going to be presenting data that is incorrect or has issues. So a key stakeholder is critical. Another example that I had was someone from the business had a great idea. They had a great problem to solve. And I worked with them in developing a report, identifying what was the problem, looking at the solution. We took it to his manager and his manager said, yeah, look, this is great. I appreciate the work, but this is never going to work because we have contractual obligations. So really, that's great, but we can never change our contracts. So sorry about that. So involving people from the business from all levels is really important. Which brings me to my next point, which is lack of executive buy-in. So projects don't always go according to plan. Sometimes they change direction. They might go over time. And this happens a lot. And when this does happen, you're going to need support from key executives. And this is only going to happen if the executives know the benefits of the project. And when you do this, obviously you can secure a strong commitment from them. So they need to be engaged early and they need to know what's going on. Second point I'll mention is, change is not easy. We're going to get pushback because people are people. People are used to doing things the way they've always done it, and they don't want to change. I worked with a guy who was, using Excel spreadsheet for 20 years. He didn't want to do it another way. He knew what he was doing. And so you are going to get pushback from the business when you are innovating, you're using data, you're doing something new. And, there might be fear. They might be fearful that, you're going to find out that they're doing something wrong. Or there's a fear that you're going to replace their job with technology. And if you can't overcome these types of hurdles, with communicating with individuals, executive buy-in is really important. And the last point here I'll mention is that businesses always have conflicting priorities. So essentially, the business is going to put its core work as priority. Your data project will never take priority over what the business is doing. And so if you're trying to push something new, different, innovative, good luck if, you don't have these type of things set up early, where you're having executive buy-in and executive, I suppose, fighting and selling the benefit in the data project that you're trying to roll out across the business. For example, I worked on a very successful data project where we used Power BI and machine learning, and it predicted massive savings for the business. It even won, a state award for it. But unfortunately, I could never get the business to actually implement this project. One, because they preferred the old way. And the second one, if we go back to the previous slide, I didn't involve those key business stakeholders right from the start. And this is a real reason that executive buy-in is important, because there's no way you as an individual or you as a team are going to be able to get people to use a tool without that executive buy-in. So the fourth common problem that we have is data integrity or poor data integrity. So the popular saying goes, garbage in, garbage out, and this is especially true for data projects. So poor data quality and accuracy is always going to be a major obstacle to the success of a data project. If we have a look at a few stats, so KPMG put up that 84% of CEOs are concerned about the quality of information that they're using to make business decisions. Gartner also found that 40% of business initiatives fail, and this is all down to data quality. And, it's important for us to encourage the business to treat data as an asset. So many times through the data projects that I've been running, you'll note that people don't realize the value of data. So they might be doing poor data entry because they just want to get their jobs done, skipping fields, just entering the first drop-down option, that dreaded other option. If you've ever done reporting and 80% is in other, is really not helpful. So we need to be able to deal with these data issues early. Imagine the consequences of creating a report, presenting it, and then the business making decisions of flawed data. The repercussions for this would be huge. So looking at our data integrity and understanding that data integrity is important as well. Fifth point I want to look at is the inability to pivot. So what happens if you've gathered all your requirements for your data project only to see that your business is starting to change? So worse yet, what happens if your business needs change after you've deployed a new solution? So unfortunately, many analytics solutions, they just aren't built to evolve. They are built for a business need at a time, and they exist, and that business need might exist when it's implemented. But what if the business, changes software platforms? What if they change software providers? They might use a new type of database. All of a sudden, they're going to build a data lake or a data warehouse, and your data is coming from somewhere else. So solutions that aren't built to adapt are likely to fail. So we need to be agile in our thinking and future-proof the way we build these examples. Just for example, so in one of my roles, I was building a Power BI project that was public facing, so it was on the council website, and it was connected to on-premise data. So it was a database that was not in the cloud. And without my knowledge, this data source was switched to a cloud-based solution, and this cloud-based solution, had an API, or an API was coming. And when I called the vendor and said, "Hey, I'm using this data in my report," they said to me that the API it's under development and it's coming. So just let me give you a little secret. If ever you're working with a vendor and they say the API is coming, what they really mean is, it's somewhere on our road plan and somewhere in the future it's going to come. Every vendor has an API coming, so make sure that that API is actually there. But we had to pull that data out of that report, and at my time there, we never got that data back because we were waiting for the vendor to create an API. So these are type of the things that you need to think about beforehand in running your data project. And the last one, because I realize I'm running a little bit short of time, is no training. So in the business that I run, we do Power BI training for local government, but what I'm talking about is not training in how to use a particular tool. I'm talking about training in when you deploy your project. So supporting the business during handover. So data projects are not just about technology. As data people, we love technology, we love working with that data, but sometimes we forget that the business just wants to get the job done. The business just wants to answer the question. They don't actually care how you did it, how much effort you put in to make everything look nice and clean. Just answer the question. That's all they want to know. And our goal in business intelligence is really to enable them to answer those questions. So all data projects really need an implementation plan. So this does ensure things like training is available, guides on how to use the product that we've created for them. So in terms of Power BI, how do I navigate a report? How do I move to different pages? How do I set up alerts when a KPI fails? All these type of things need to be trained, document, and really this is minimal effort at the end of your project, but your chances of success in terms of the business taking hold of your project is just huge. So, minimal effort, but huge return. We always need to follow up as well on our data projects. So just once you've delivered something, you can't just hand it over and it's all gone. You really should follow up with your clients or with the business once all this technical work is done. So you might have been building this project for weeks or months, but if you don't check in, see how they're going, monitor if they're using the tool, you can help the uptake of what you're building, which again is only going to benefit you, because if they're using the tool, they're making decisions, that's helping the business, and that's also justifying your role within the business or with the client. So the 6 common reasons for data project failures: not solving a problem, not involving the business, lack of executive buy-in, poor data integrity, inability to pivot, and no training. So these are just some of the common reasons that I've experienced in my time in running data projects. Look, there's a lot more. I'll add a few in there. Poor communication, excessive focus on tech, misapplication of analytics. So there's a whole heap of reasons that your project can fail. So what's some methodology that we can use to have a look at all these failure points and kind of track them along the way so that we make sure we don't forget something? So this is, well, I'm calling it a Power BI report development methodology. This is something I use. It is based on the model of CRISP-DM. CRISP-DM is a data mining model. In my world, which is Power BI, business intelligence analytics, we don't do so much of data mining. We're doing more analytics. So I have changed this a little bit and customized it, but it is based off CRISP-DM. So in this type of model, it does allow you to kind of capture all these issues at gate points. So for this model, we have the business understanding. So understanding what the business wants, setting up that problem statement from the start, finding out who the key stakeholder is, Moving on to data understanding, so understanding the data in the context in terms of the business. So how do they use it? What are those issues with the data? Then we move into data preparation, so our ETL, cleaning, transforming the data, reporting analysis, so building our Power BI report, looking at visualization, using the guidelines in how do we present a report that is easy for users to consume. Then we will go and evaluate the report. And you can see it all kind of works in a cycle. So once we've evaluated the report, usually we're going to go back to the business. The business might have a hypothesis that they want to prove. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not. Maybe we found some additional information when we're looking at the data and we want to present that to the business. And again, we would go through this cycle. And again, also, we can go back from, data preparation, going back to data understanding and backwards and forwards. So it's quite circular in its motion. And then at the end, we would end with deployment. So again, it can capture all these issues. So, here in the green down the bottom left, we had no training. This is all captured in the deployment stage. Poor data integrity in the blue one at the top. So this is a really good methodology. Unfortunately, I'm running out of time, but so I can't really go into, unpacking the methodology and how you can manage your data projects. I will be doing a series on this in YouTube eventually where, this might be the first one, and then we'll go through all the different stages. And so you can help you to understand how you run a data project. So that is it for me. There are my contact details if you are interested. There's the YouTube channel that I have if you do want to find out more information about Crisp DM or the different ways you can run a data project. So thanks, Laura. That's it. I'll stop sharing.
Great. Thanks so much, Warren. Really appreciate that. I was just thinking that presentation is really must watch for anyone who's at the beginning of their data journey or even, a fair way through their data journey. It's some really great tips and just some really great refresher information in there for anyone involved in this space. I've got a couple of questions that have come through. First one I wanted to ask was, of those 6 pain points that you referenced in your presentation, which is the one that you sort of see most commonly, or which is the one that you see really tripping people up quite a bit in a local government context?
Yeah, well, I think it's not having a problem statement. It's probably the two of them combined, not having a problem statement and a problem statement that is from the business. Especially, Power BI is kind of new in local government. And what we find is people, just getting on the tools. And it's a great tool. It's an amazing tool. If you're interested in learning how to use it, please do reach out. But what we find is, people just get in development mode and it's exciting and I'm answering all these questions. But is this what the business really cares about? Is this what is actually going to make a difference to the business in terms of quality or saving money? So it might be really cool. You might find some interesting insights. But especially when you're starting out, you want to look at that low-hanging fruit to justify what you're doing in the business. And that's not really a good way to go about it.
Great, thanks, Warren. And just as a follow-up, for people who are a bit more advanced in sort of in their data journey or perhaps in their usage of data, what's one of those 6 pain points that can trip up more experienced players, sort of people who generally know what they're doing, but can sort of get tripped up by a tricky one that can sneak up and, as you say, turn your data project into a data fire?
Yeah, well, I think this was kind of mentioned in the panel before. I might add one that I didn't put in there, which is data visualization or being able to tell a story with data. Because I suppose what I find in working in these type of roles is we're all technical, we like to code, we understand data, but being able to work with the business, being able to present that story clearly so that the business, they're not going to go, maybe I like that idea. We can clearly present that visually through data visualization where it's just completely obvious that they need to make this decision. So in the example I did give where we're using kindergarten or maternal child health data to look at where to place kindergartens, We were able to do that on a map, using a heat map to show where all the maternal child health, so where all the children under 5 were born on a map. And it was just obvious that there was no kindergartens in this area. So it didn't matter who you showed that to. They were like, yes, you're right, we need to build a kindergarten here because look what's going to happen. So being able to tell a data story is a little bit more different to, manipulating, working with your data. And it's a bit of a different skill that most people might not have invested in as much.
Yeah, fantastic. Really good points and advice there, Warren. Look, just looking at time now, we'll have to wrap things up. But look, thank you again for sharing that presentation with us. We really enjoyed hearing from you today.
No, thank you for having me. I appreciate your time, everyone.
Great. Thanks, Warren.